To lay out this pin, I just drew what I wanted on a piece of scrap steel with a soapstone, measured the head with the dividers, and then went around the body to figure out how many divisions were in the body and the pin. I'm just going to be forging it to the shape, so the dimensions don't really matter. This just gives me a good ballpark. The way that you forge the head of the snake is the same way you'd forge a regular leaf. I just drew a blunt taper about a ½ inch from the end, and then set down on two sides to separate the mass for the head. Then I turned it up on its corner and flattened it. I know I'm going to get a couple of questions, so I figure I'll just answer them now. First, why don't you have any tongs? The answer is I'm working on it. Second, why does your anvil look so terrible? The answer is I'm working on it. And third, why is that smoke rising from your anvil? And the answer is actually that I waterproof it with just some motor oil, and I didn't completely wipe it off before I started forging, so the hot metal is just burning it off. Here I'm just figuring out how long the section I've forged actually is, marking it with a soapstone, and then tracing it with dividers to figure out how many divisions I have. I ended up having 12 divisions plus a little more, which is perfect. It allows me to correct the inaccuracies that I had in my little layout sketch. It allows me to bend and make small adjustments to the tail and things like that without having to pay the price of having something that's too short. Before I start forging the pin, I actually lay out 5 heads worth of space using the dividers from before, and then an extra head to give me enough material to make the barrel. Make sure that when you're using a hot cut, you hit the work hard enough so that it flies in different directions and either lights your workshop on fire or otherwise burns or maims someone. To forge the barrel of the pin, I just spread out the material with my crosspeen. I estimated about 1 head's worth of material. And then I roll it over the bick, and I clean it up at the vise. I cut most of this footage out. It's just boring. I needed a custom engraving tool for this project in addition to the ones that I already had, so I just took a piece of this file, and I don't know too much about it other than it hardens really well in water. I forged it out and ground the edges off camera, and I just ground a rough profile into it with my bench grinder and then finished it up with a file. After I cleaned it up with a file, I just heated it with a torch to its transition temperature, which for this piece of steel was sort of a bright red or a dull orange color. Quenched it in water, then scrubbed off the scale with a file, and finally tempered it to a light straw color. I'm pretty pleased with the way this engraving chisel turned out. It makes a pretty clean mark into the metal, and any distortion can be easily cleaned up with light blows from the hammer. If I could change anything, I'd want it to be a little bit longer, but, you know, who hasn't wished that? I wanted to do a hot vinegar etch for two reasons. One, I wanted to give the piece a little bit of weather resistance, and two, I didn't want to get rid of all the scale engraving that I had done earlier. I felt like an oil finish would just kind of mask the scales instead of accentuate them, so vinegar was my option. I don't have any access to ferric chloride, so I just used regular white vinegar, and I brought it to a boil using my camp stove. I used some pieces of MIG wire to take the pieces in and out of the vinegar bath without having to put my hands in boiling water / vinegar. And I used some regular #1 steel wool just to rough up the surface between every etch. I etched the pieces about 3 times. And here's the final product. I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. If I could change anything, I would actually make the pin a little bit thinner. It tends to stretch the material once you push it through a blanket. Other than that, I just need to learn how to engrave, and I think future ones will be a lot better. If you made it this far, I want to thank you for watching. If you have any ideas for projects I can do in the future, improvements I can make to the quality of the videos or the projects themselves, I'd love to hear it. So I'll see you in the next one.